Now, let us talk about the normative component of culture. So, what are these normative component of cultures? According to Panopio et al. 1994 and Machonis 2003, the following are the normative components of culture. We have knowledge, norms, then we also have values, beliefs, language, and symbols. We also have the artifacts and the technology. Now, part of the social norms, we have the specific forms such as the folkways and the mores and laws. So one by one, I am going to discuss each component. So I hope that you will take note while you are watching this video so that you could be able to understand it well. Okay, so let's start with knowledge. What is knowledge? It is actually the total range of what has been learned and perceived as true body of information accumulated through experiences, a study, or investigation. So when we say knowledge, we have to be very particular, guys, that it has to be something that has been studied or that has been investigated. We cannot accept the gossips, the chismes given by our neighbors as a fact, no? Because fact is part of knowledge, and knowledge is definitely from the facts. Okay, so the what I'm saying here is that we will only consider it as knowledge if it is proven to be the fact of the matter. Okay, not just a mere hearsay. Okay, we have to thoroughly experience that one, and we have to study that one, and we have to undergo a series of investigation so that we could come up with such body of information. So there, that is knowledge, guys. Now let's move forward to norms. Now, please take note that norms are very vital when we talk about our culture, because when we say norms or social norms, these are the prescriptive behavior or standards of behavior that we are expected to follow, whether we like it or not, guys. So in the minds of the members of a group, it has to be put into a statements of specifying what members of the society should do, ought to do, or are expected to do under a particular circumstances, according to Humans 1950. So there. So to break it down, guys, when we say norms, these are basically and actually guides or models of behaviors which tells us which is proper and which is not, which is appropriate and which is inappropriate, which is right and which is wrong. Okay, and so if it is proper, if it is appropriate, and if it is right, then we have to do it. If it is improper, if it is inappropriate, and if it is wrong, so we have to deviate from it, and we will never do such act or behavior. So another is that when we say norms, it pertains to the society's standard of propriety or morality, even ethics and legalities. And when we say norms, this guys, please take note that norms would actually vary from one society to the other group of society. It would differ actually according to the age, to the sex, to the religion or occupation, and even it would differ from the ethnicity of a particular group. So what I'm saying here, guys, is that our norms will definitely be uh, different from other society, but it doesn't mean that it would be totally different. There are norms that are being followed from other societies, the same as the norms that we have in our society. So for instance, okay, I will not give you examples na lang. I will just continue discussing the different social norms, or the forms of social norms, so that you could better understand what exactly is norms and how important it is in our society, or how important it is to ourselves as an individual, and to ourselves as a member of a particular society. So the first form of social norm is folkways. What is folkways? Folkways, guys, is actually norms for routine and casual interactions. It has something to do with our everyday matters of politeness, our general manners and right conduct. So that is folkways. But when we say mores, guys, these are norms that are important to the welfare of the people and their cherished values. It consists mostly of the taboos. They have great moral significance and strong sanctions, and they apply also to the sex behavior, to marriage, to family relations, to physical and moral aggression against members of a group. It also refers to the betrayal of a group, and it has something to do with the attitudes towards our authority, and it also includes our religion. Okay, so basically, when we say mores, it is a strong, strict guidelines of our manners, of our patterns of behaviors. Okay, so when we say when I mentioned a while ago that it applies to sex behavior. Okay, so of course, in our society and even in other society, teenage pregnancy is considered to be a taboo. It's considered to be a socially unaccepted thing. However, these days, guys, because as we all know that culture is changing, and it has its ways of adapting to the present situation of the environment, then these days it's becoming a taboo. We are somehow slowly accepting the other gender. Okay, before we only accept male and female. Now we have the LGBTQR, or the queer groups, and we respect them regardless of what gender they would want to acquire and to establish on their self identity. So there. Now, let's go to the next form of social norm, and that is laws. Now, when we say law or laws, these are formalized norms that are enacted by the people who are vested with the governmental power enforced by the political and the legal authorities designed by the government. Now, in our Philippine society, who's responsible for that one? We have our lawmakers, and most particularly the Congress. And that is why during election, guys, please let us be very careful in choosing or in voting for a particular candidate running for the said position. Please let us be very particular as to what they have contributed to the society. It's not just we will base it on their looks. We will base it on their physical appearance, because they are handsome. They are an actor. They are rich. Okay, we have to be very particular if this particular candidate is really fit for the position, and that he knows how to do his job, which is attached to that particular position. Okay, guys? Dili kay, ay, ako na lang na siya. I will vote for him because he's very handsome. I like him, super cute. No, 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 guys, please don't do that. Or because he is famous, or because he is rich, please don't do that, guys. We really have to see to it that we will put those individuals in authority to govern us, because they are qualified to do so, and they really are well informed and knowledgeable enough to do their job, because mind you, guys, they are responsible for making the laws of our land, and we will be affected because we are all being controlled by the said law that they will be giving to our society. Okay, so there. And that basically is what law is. So law, particularly, functions to regulate or control the people's behavior and conduct. So take note, guys, when it regulates our conduct, okay, if we are not going to follow what we are ought to do, if we are not going to to act on a particular thing that we are asked, then we can consider it as a deviance. Okay, so you can be called as a deviant. So when there's an ad or an acceptable behavior, there is this what we call deviance. So it is simply, when we say deviance, it is simply any violation of the society's norm. Okay, now when we say deviance, it could also it can range from something that is very minor, very mini, kanang gamay ra jud kaayo sa tanan, but it could also be something that is very major. Okay, so it could be something like a murder. Okay, um when defiance is already that major, when it is already of a very high degree, then we consider it as a criminal act. Okay, and so the deviant person will no longer be called as such a deviant, but he could be called as criminal or a murderer, in fact. Now, when we say defiance also, please guys, it is important to know that it is not defiance is not only done when when you are doing something that is actually prohibited. Defiance can also be done when you you fail to do something in which you are ought to do. Okay, so for instance, how would I put it this way? Okay, a crime or a felony is defined as an act or an omission which is made punishable by law. Okay, so a crime a crime might be done or might be committed if you do an act. Okay, if you particularly do an act which is prohibited by the law, or when you omitted or when you failed to do a particular act wherein the law tells you to do or oblige you to do. So I hope that's clear, that is clear to you guys. Now, okay, to be very clear, let's put it this way. You might be confused. Okay, how can a particular act of not doing becomes a crime? You could say, I am not doing anything. How can I be held liable? How can I become a criminal if I did not do anything? So that's the thing there. You did not do a thing. You never lifted a finger, but you are supposed to do something about it. You are obliged to act on that particular thing. Okay, so there. Oh, okay. Very simple example. Okay, um, perhaps I saw a boy swimming, and I also saw him drowning, but then I never do something about it because I just don't feel like doing it. Question: will I be held liable if that boy dies? No, the answer is no. How could I be held liable when I am just a mere bystander in that particular place where it just so happened that I am there and then this particular boy was drowning? How would I be made liable for a particular crime when I did not do anything? How could I be considered as a criminal? The answer is no. The answer there is that no, I am not really a criminal. I am not held liable. Why? Because I don't have any duty. Okay, you get it? For all you know, the reason why I did not help the boy is because I don't know how to swim. So it might be that if I make myself a hero, I might as well be killing myself in that particular situation. You get it? So when can a person be held liable or be called criminal when he omits to do something? It's like this: if a particular man saw that the boy was drowning, and that man is the lifeguard, okay? So only then he will be held liable for the boy's death. Why? Because it is his duty, it is his job as a lifeguard to safeguard the life of all those individuals swimming in that particular area. So I hope you get the point there, ladies and gentlemen. Now let's talk about another thing that is also in relevance to the norms, and most particularly in the form of law. Let's talk about sanction now. Guys, when we say sanction, it is actually a form of punishment or a reward. Okay, why do we get such punishment, and why do we get such reward? Okay, it is in order to promote conformity to the norms. So uh, it operates in a system of social control, that when a person fails to conform adequately to a culture's norm or social control, and then the social control will comes into play. So our law will now be working, or will now be doing its purpose, will now be serving its purpose and its functions, and that is to provide sanctions for those who are deviant. Okay, so a very simple example is that when a boy helps an elderly woman crossing the street or carrying something, oh, okay, we as a part of that particular society, we will definitely smile and say thank you to that boy. Okay, so that is an act of gratification for the boy's good behavior. And he is being sanctioned by what? By appreciation. He is being rewarded by our thank you. Now, another is that if a businessman, okay, if I am a businessman, then I am raising the profit of our company, then most definitely I will be rewarded. It could be in a sum of money, or it could be I will be raised to a particular higher position. So you get it. A good act is being sanctioned, and it could be in a positive manner as well. So sanction could be positive, and it could also be negative at the same time. We're in if you act in a very bad manner, when a particular boy acts in a very discourteous, impolite, disrespectful, let's say this boy talk back or even fight with his father, then that boy will be ridiculed by his neighbors, by the peoples within society. Or worse, if that boy eventually did hurt his father badly, and to the extent that he killed his father, then he would be punished by our law, because it could be a homicide, guys. Okay, and because of such act, he was able to commit a crime, and that is killing his own father, and that is parricide, ladies and gentlemen. So I hope everything is clear here when we talk about norms, because norms entails a lot of things. It talks about the folkways, it talks about mores, and it talks about the laws. And then when we had the laws, we were talking also about the deviance. Okay, we were talking about sanctions at the same time. Okay, now let us move forward to another normative component of culture, and that is the values and beliefs. So, what do we mean by values and beliefs? Well, basically, when we say values, ladies and gentlemen, it has something to do with our how would I say this one? Values are culturally defined standards by which people assesses desirability, goodness, and beauty. Okay, so values are the things that we culturally define by our standards, in which we assess it with a certain degree of desirability, goodness and beauty. Okay, so values serve as a very broad guidelines of our social living. In fact, they are, of course, they are abstract concept. No, it is a part of our non-material culture. It is an abstract concept, but it has a very heavy, or it has a very certain, very high degree of importance or worthwhile, and it indicates our social conscience as part of our society. It even motivates us, and it even makes us very determined to behave in a particular manner, to the extent that it has become part of our social control. Now, when we say beliefs, these are specific statements that people hold to be true. Or again, beliefs is part of our non-material culture because it is intangible. It has something to do with our thoughts and with our feelings. So, but we, as part of our society, we consider it, and then we consult and depend on our body of beliefs for a certain courses of action. In which, if you could recall a while ago, because of this pandemic, I was having this anxiety attacks. I was a bit depressed, but then because of my beliefs, okay, to a certain degree, I have this high faith, and so I just rely it to my God, and I just pray to God to actually, let things take its natural courses. But because of God, I have confidence that things will gonna be all right, and everything that we have gone through will just eventually pass, and we will be able to get through it. Okay, so that's part of our belief. That's part of our religion. So the following values, according to Father Jaime Bolato, are to be held highly by the Filipinos, and these are our emotional closeness and security within our family. We also have this authority value, according to the authority figure, and we also have this economic and social betterment, and also we have this patience, and we have this kind of endurance to endure whatever sufferings we may have as of the moment. We really work so hard. We just keep on being patient. We just keep on working so hard, and we just keep on praying, and we just keep on thanking our family for being there with us in this very trying times, or in that particular very difficult situation of our life. So that is values and beliefs, guys. Now let's move forward finally to the last normative component of culture, and that is language and symbols. So what is a language, guys? Language is actually the system of symbols that basically allows people to communicate with one another. Okay, so I mentioned a while ago that part of culture is a symbol. Okay, so it could be. I've mentioned a while ago that it could be spoken, it could be written, or it could also be based on our body gestures. Okay, so then language is a system of symbols that allows people to communicate with one another, and then transmit culture from one generation to the next. And also, human culture actually, guys, could never, and uh, it would be very impossible to exist without the language. Why is it? It's because symbol is anything that carries a very particular meaning, and that is recognized by people who share culture. Now, culture actually relies much on the symbols that we have. Okay, like the way we talk, the way we relay or convey things, it is already showing something. Okay, so when I say symbol is anything that carries a particular meaning that is recognized by people who shares the same culture, A mere, how would I put this one? Let's have an example na lang to make it simpler. A mere raising of eyebrows like this, it could give the impression, or it could be interpreted by a particular culture that this person is very very strict. This person has a bad manners. Okay, but in other culture, it could also be that it's just it. It's just a part of that person's mannerism, or it's just a part of a person's way of, or it could be just simply part of that person's appearance. You see, but another thing is that when when we whistle, okay, I think all the males are so fond of doing this. I'm not saying, but generally speaking, that males are so fond of whistling in order to get the attention of the female. And please don't do that. And then please, female, don't give them the satisfaction, and don't give them the privilege to make bastos to you. Okay. Basically, when you do that, it's rude. But another thing when we talk about whistle is that when you whistle, it could be that you are happy and you are singing a happy tune. So that could also be a part of someone else's culture, or a particular society's culture. So that is language and symbols, guys. Now we have the artifacts and technology. What is its importance? What does artifacts says when we say culture? Of course, guys, artifacts are tangible human creation. So it gives, or it provides a lot of ideas and informations as to how a particular generation existed, and as to how they do about with their day-to-day living. Okay, so a and artifacts, or a technology, reflect a society's knowledge that people use to make a way of their day-to-day life in their surroundings. And then also, as I mentioned a while ago, artifacts are historical symbols. And also, it could be that there are beliefs and values that is being attached to them. So if you're a Roman Catholic, or like me, we tend to value so much of a relic from a particular saint. And so we feel so blessed and happy to have such particular relic from that particular saint. Okay, so that's just us Catholic. But for the rest, maybe they don't care about it. So basically, as I mentioned a while ago, culture varies from society to society. So when we talk about technology, guys, of course, I've mentioned a while ago that we are so happy that the whatever the past generation was able to come up with, we are so happy that we are enjoying it now, and we have the privilege also to make it better. And hence, once we are able to make it better, then we see its usefulness. We see its benefits. And then we are so eager to pass it to the next generation. And then perhaps the next generation will also improve it, okay, and make it more useful and more beneficial, as of course, based on their standard of living. Okay, so basically, guys, those are the normative components of culture. I hope I was able to discuss it properly, and you were able to understand it all. So let us now talk about the important concepts of culture. And these are enculturation, collective identity, personal identity, acculturation, and also we will discuss some aspects that are also related with culture. And actually, there are a lot other aspects also. So one by one, we are going to discuss that one. And to start up with, let us now talk about the concept of culture, most particularly enculturation. So, what actually is enculturation? When we said inculturation, guys, it is just basically the process by which we people learn the dynamic of our surrounding cultures. We learn how to we learn how to do the basic practices, the values, and the norms that our society have or are actually practicing as of the moment. Then it refers to the internalizing and the subjective process of adapting a transmitted culture from a generation towards the next generation as well. So we actually follow the patterns of our cultures and teach them to the next generation in order to guide them. And this process of transmitting the cultural elements from one generation to the next is what we so called as inculturation. Thus, cultural elements do not persist in one generation but are transmitted to the next generation, and then it also survived the entire lifespan of an individual. Um, it is also the reason why there are a lot of similarities in our behaviors that are being found between people coming from two different generations, and that is because of the particular group that we tend to associate ourselves with because we see ourselves belonging to that particular group or society, and for the reason is that we share a very common commonalities, no, so that is why we call it collective identity. Okay. For instance, we may associate or we may have ourselves as the Visconians. What is our collective identity there? It's because we are actually connected to each other based on the university where we go to. So we could also consider as we can associate ourselves as the radicals or the rationals, okay, or the leftists, anything that we can consider actually, provided that this particular group, no, we have a strong sense of belongingness to this particular groups based on the very commonalities that we have shared with this particular group. Okay, so that is collective identity. Simple example is that kung sa man jud atong pinaka-basic nga collective identity, we are Bisaya, 'di ba? Because we speak the same dialect, or another is that we came from the same island or if not the same region. Okay, so that's another thing when we talk about collective identity. That is actually more on the shared identity of a particular group of individuals. So there. Now let us talk about personal identity. Personal identity is quite different, of course, from from the collective identity because personal identity refers to the state we're in when you reach the point of your self awareness in the enculturation process. So, in other words, you are already finding your personal identity, and so in this particular phase of your life, you are also building yourself, or we can call it the building of the self, based on how you are, okay, or based on how different you are with the people around you. So when we say personal identities are actually about the attributes and the meanings attributed to oneself, okay, as the actor, and they are the self designations, the self attributions that are regarded as personally distinctive. So personal identity, they are especially likely to be asserted during the course of interaction when other imputed social entities are, how would I say this? When other imputed social identities are regarded as contradictory, as when individuals are cast into social roles or categories that are insulting and demeaning. Okay, so it is actually how you see yourself being as an individual person or an individual self, even if you are an individual belonging to this particular kind of group. Okay, so personal identities, guys, may derive from the role of incumbency or on the category-based membership, but they are not necessarily comparable since the relative salience of social roles or category membership with respect to personal identity can be quite variable. So, personal identity is focusing actually on your very own self-awareness and on the self-knowledge that you have had acquired, and so you are now building your own self. You are now establishing your own self. I mean, you are now establishing your own identity, if not claiming your own identity as an individual person belonging to a particular society. Okay, so you might say that I may be raised by a very conservative family, but I see myself as a very liberated and practical individual. So in that way, you are putting already your personal identity. You are segregating yourself from your group based on how you see yourself as to who and as to what kind of person you are. So that is personal identity. Now let's talk about acculturation, because acculturation is also a very important concept of culture, and it has something to do also with enculturation. So after after discussing acculturation, we have, or it is imperative for us to totally distinguish acculturation from enculturation. So what then is acculturation, and how is it different from enculturation? So when we say acculturation, it's actually a process of social, psychological, and cultural change that stems from the balancing of two cultures rather, while adapting to the prevailing culture of the society. So when an individual or groups of people transitions from living a lifestyle of their own culture to moving into a lifestyle of another culture, then they must acculturate or come to adopt to a new culture's behaviors, also values and customs, and obviously, of course, language is very important also. Now, the word acculturation is the act of transitioning. It's the very process of transitioning from one culture that you have been used to into the new culture that you are adapting with. Okay, so to put it in a very simple manner, when we say acculturation, it simply refers to acquiring cultural practices when you meet a different culture aside from the culture where you grow up. Okay, so For instance, guys, I'm maybe a Filipino, but what if I grow up in Europe, and so basically the culture that I am exposed to is the European culture, and so I would be following the European culture. But because I'm a Filipino, I should and I have to learn also the Filipino culture. So how would I do that? Then acculturation comes into play. I will then acculturate myself. Okay, I will then educate myself with the Filipino culture. So, uh, I hope we are not confused, no, because it's quite clear what's the difference between acculturation and enculturation. So, when we say enculturation, it is the process of learning and adapting from one own culture. Okay, it is your own culture. It is the very culture where you are growing up with, and it is the very culture that you have with you the very moment that you were born. But when we say acculturation, guys, it is actually the process of learning and adapting from others' culture. Okay, and in acculturation, it is just basically a process by which we acquire culture. But acculturation is a process by which one's culture becomes subsumed by the other. Okay, I hope that's quite clear enough. Another difference is that when we say enculturation, uh, enculturation is necessary and often occurs without influence. Why it occurs without influence? Because it is the very culture that you are already accustomed to. As I mentioned a while ago, the moment you were born, it is already the custom, the culture rather that you are exposed to. So that is why there is no need for such influence, no. But when we say acculturation, it is not essential for survival, but it is learned when necessary. Okay. If you deem it is important for you to survive, then you have to learn that culture. So, for instance, you are a Filipino, but then you will be migrating to another country, or maybe right after you graduate college, maybe you will proceed your postgraduate study in another country. It could be in Germany or in Belgium or in France. Then uh, it is important for you to be able to speak their language so that you will be able to easily interact, and you could easily live, and if not learn, of course, the very basics of their culture. And it would provide you, how would I say that one, a more comfortable life when you are already accustomed to the culture in the place where you are staying or studying as of that particular moment. So that is enculturation and acculturation. I hope that's clear. Now, in culture, guys, there are also a lot of different concepts that we have to deal with, and some of it are the following. Okay, so there's basically the distinctions between acculturation and enculturation, and I held you responsible to browse on that one and to read everything so that you will make yourself very much informed and knowledgeable of the differences of the two things. Okay, now moving forward, let us talk about the concepts which are related to culture, and um, some of which I think you're already familiar with, but some of which are quite new to you. So if it is new to you, then you will have a culture shock. So what is culture shock? It is actually a personal disorientation when you're experiencing something in a very unfamiliar way of life. It is the inability to read, meaning you are so new in that particular surroundings, and which makes you feel like a little lost, isolated, unsure on how to act, or sometimes it even frightens you. And with all honesty, guys, when I first came here in Bye, I had that kind of feeling. I was culture shock. It was way different with the place that I grew up, and they also have this particular culture that I am not familiar with. But then I had to acculturate myself in order for me to make my life easier and comfortable and what have you. So there. From having culture shock, if you will just acculturate yourself, then things will be easier for you. Trust me, I've been there and I've done that. Okay, so let us now forward to cultural universals. So what do you mean by cultural universals? It's just actually these norms, values, beliefs, and conditioned emotional responses that is being shared among the members of the society. So example for the cultural universals are the calendars that we are using. Okay, it existed way back then from the Roman Empire, and it is being passed on to us, and then until now we are using calendars. And literally we used to have those big calendars posted in our walls, and maybe some of us are still using it, and we put it in our desk. But some of us are just really changing already, and we're just using our mobile phones for the calendar. And then the aspect of cleanliness, the training of being honest. Okay, that's also a part of our cultural universals. Courtship, even courtship. Okay, I know for a fact that we're already in the modern times, but I think we still appreciate being courted, like being courted by the people that we like to court us. Okay, it could be the female courting the male, or it could be the male courting the female, vice versa. Okay, so because we are living in a modern era, so it's not just up to the guys to express their feelings. Okay, and so some of the girls may no longer wait for the guys to express, so they will just do the courtship themselves. So it's up to you guys. Basically those are the examples of cultural universals. Now let's talk about the concept of cultural diversity. What is cultural diversity, guys? It is actually the wide range of differences in various aspects of culture and social organization. So while people all over the world have similar biological tribes and needs, the ways of meeting them would differ. Okay, so each culture adapt to its environment in its very distinctive way. So if we have cultural universal, wherein we share a lot of similar cultures. In cultural diversity, what we are talking here is that though we shared the same cultures, but there are different ways and different manners in order for us to how would I say this one? In order for us to actually put it into practice, okay? And when it comes to our biological tribes, when it comes to our biological needs, although we all share the same urges, but we definitely differ in our ways into how we practice that one. Let's say for instance, in a particular island wherein there is this shortage of male, and so they are allowed to have wives as many as they would want to, because there is a shortage of them. And so it is okay, like polygamy is allowed in that particular island, but in our society it is not allowed. Okay, but it doesn't mean that we will not heed to our need to have the satisfaction of our biological needs. We have to. It's just that we have to do it in a proper manner as what our culture dictates us to do. So we need to have our proper wedding ceremony, and it should be done only when we are of legal age, and it should be done only between a man and a woman. Okay, and And after which, guys, we also have to live with our vow to to be together in sickness and in health, in poorer and for poorer. Okay, so that's how basically how we deal with our cultural diversities. Because in other countries, they could just, if they don't feel like having each other anymore, then they would just, go and have an annulment or have a divorce. But in our country, marriage is so sacred, and so we tend to really think that we have to live with each other till the day we die, because we have a vow of forever. Okay, so much for the cultural diversity. Let us now forward with ethnocentricity. Ethnocentrism. What do we mean by ethnocentrism? Actually, guys, when we say ethnocentrism, it is a manner or a practice of judging others culture by the standards of one's own culture. So it considers one ways as the right and appropriate and the moral way. And so ethnocentrism increases one's appreciation and commitment to one's own culture, thereby strengthening the group's morale and enhancing the group's solidarity at the same time. And it also boosts the individual self-esteem. So basically, when we talk ethnocentrism, it leads to patriotism, it leads to nationalism, and it leads to a strong love and sense of loyalty to one's country or to one's culture. So ethnocentrism basically is when you say that my country is way better than your country. My culture is way better than your culture, because it is again the practice of judging another culture based on the standard of your own culture. So that is ethnocentrism. Now let us talk about Cenocentrism, which is quite the opposite of Cenocentrism. And I do believe that we Filipinos are quite practicing this one in a way that we always believe what is foreign is best, no? And that one's own lifestyle, products, and ideas are inferior to those of all others. So we have a strong feelings of Cenocentrism because we try to cause people to, how would I say this one? We try to cause people to reject their own group, and that is very visible among us Filipinos. In what sense? Okay, when we talk about chocolates, we would really choose Snickers instead of Cloud9. and and if we talk about brandings, I think we would very much appreciate what are the brands? There are a lot of important goods that we really love. Okay, so I think you know what I'm saying here, that we tend to appreciate more the imported goods over the local goods that we have, which is wrong, guys, actually, because we have to support our own economy, and we have to really help each other as much as possible, especially during this pandemic, because a lot of businesses are much affected because of the pandemic. So I hope, guys, that we will instill in us more of the ethnocentrism, and we will be eradicating the xenocentrism. Okay, so I hope, guys, that we will learn how to support and how to help our local businessmen, and that we will buy local products. Please, guys, buy local products, buy Glowish. Oh, advertise na ko, just lang. Okay, as I was saying again, guys, we really have to eliminate the said ethnocentrism, but we have to put a strong sense of ethnocentrism. Okay, if we do not like our local product because for us it is not good enough, then we are not helping to make it better if we are not buying them. Why? Because the local businessmen are not earning. So without earning, without profit, it would be harder for them to produce more products that are of good quality. Okay, so there. Now let's talk about the subculture. What is subculture? So when we say subculture, it is actually the way of life of a subgroup with a society that is formed as a basis of age, sex, social classes, occupation, religion. Okay, so basically, when we say subgroup, guys, it develops a unique set. Wait. It develops a very unique set of norms and even attitudes or values that gives us a distinct identity from the dominant culture. And the very best example that I could think of when we say subgroup are the yes, we do have the Blackpink. I was talking about the the male version of that one. Anyways, some of their fans, because they are so fanatic, they are calling themselves as a soldier or army of this particular group. I'm googling that one right now. I'm sorry, guys. I really am not familiar with the pop culture, but they are so famous, and it's just that I really forgot their name. Never mind. I know who am I talking about. I know you know that I am referring to this particular boy band. I just maybe oh yeah, BTS. Sorry, yeah, the BTS army. That's a very best example of the subgroup. Oh my god, sorry, I am old. So going back, then after talking about subculture, we will now talk about the subculture. So what do we mean by the subculture, ladies and gentlemen? So when we say subculture, oh, that sorry, we are done with the subculture, and the example that I have given you is the BTS, the BTS army. But now we will be talking about the counterculture. So what do we mean by counterculture, ladies and gentlemen? So when we say counterculture, actually it has something to do with our the norms that actually contradicts and the values of the dominant culture. Okay, refers to a particular group of individuals that basically go against our norms or our cultures. Okay, earlier I was talking about the deviants. Okay, we could also have the juvenile delinquents. Okay, the young ones who go against the norms and who violates our laws. We could have the criminals or the smugglers, and we can even consider the prostitutes. No, so I'm sorry. I know they are just working. They are just finding their ways to earn money. But mind you, guys, there are a lot of way better ways and way decent ways to earn money. So we can consider them also as part of the countercultures. So after the counterculture, we will now have the cultural change. What do we mean by cultural change, ladies and gentlemen? So cultural change, basically it refers to the alterations in our distinctive way of life. It talks about the changes in the tools that we are using. So before we were just using actually the silhig, the broomstick, but now we have our vacuum cleaner, and these days we have vacuum cleaners that does the cleaning by themselves. We don't have to operate them. Wow, that's really amazing, right? So that's part of cultural change. Another is that when talking about cultural change, it also refers to the changes in the norms, values, and knowledge, and it has something to do also with the addition of the new words or alteration in the structure of the language. It basically is changing or providing changes, no, that are accompanied with the changes in our society. It has something to do with the changes of the patterns of our behaviors, the patterns of our social relations, the patterns of our values, attitudes, and for almost everything actually. When we talk about cultural change, everything that has to do with the changes that is happening in our society. that is referring to cultural change. And then we have the global culture. So, what do we think by global culture? So, when we say global culture, ladies and gentlemen, it actually has something to do with the societies around the world and are increasingly coming into contact with one another, and also they are how would I say this one? They are in contact with one another, and then they are shown by global economy. So an example for this perhaps are the flow of goods. We have the import and the export, for that matter. Okay, for our economy, we have to import because there are shortage of a particular goods that we need. But if there are too much, if there are surplus of our goods, then we may also export that one to the other countries who are in need of the goods that we have. So global culture also includes global communication. So these days, gone are those days that we have to pay so much with our telephone bills because we need to communicate with our loved ones in another country via long distance call. These days, we have the internet, and so we just do it easily through video calls or chats, and yeah, everything that our latest technology could offer. You know that one, and I know you are also savoring those modern technologies. Okay, what else? When we talk about global culture, guys, this refers to the global links, which makes the cultures of the world similar, but also there are some considerations. Okay, so going back to my example earlier, I talked about the global flow of goods, and as well as information and even people. Okay, there is an even practice for that one. Why? Because in urban areas, they may have a strong ties with one another, but in the rural areas, guys, it remains to be isolated. So there are cultures that are changing for the better, but there are cultures also. I mean, there are global cultures also that are not so good as the way we would see it. Okay, so I am now practicing ethnocentrism. I'm sorry for that one, guys. Okay, so going back in global culture, aside from the glow of foods, the global flow of foods rather, and the information and the people, which is uneven, we also have uh, another thing that is people in many parts of the world cannot afford various new goods and services. And that is true because people in Africa, honestly, they are so pathetic because if we guys were given the equal privilege to be educated in Africa, the girls are not allowed to go to school because they have to fetch water for them to drink. And mind you, guys, those waters that they are fetching, it's not even the crystal clear water that we have. It is muddy. It is really dirty, but then they have to settle for what is available, so they are drinking that one. Okay, so with this example, I am also given you the number one consideration when we talk about global culture, that there is global flow of goods and informations and people, but it is uneven. And then number two, people in many parts of the world cannot afford the various new goods and services that is already available. Why? It's because there is a very limited resources for them. That is why it may lead for us to have conflict. And later in the next topic, which is the sociological perspective, we will be dealing a lot more. We will be talking a lot more of the conflict thing when we will discuss the conflict theory, and that is basically because there is this, less and an equal opportunity to have the resources that we need So people in many parts of the world still cannot afford various new goods and services. And lastly, in relevance to global culture, still people do not attach the same meaning to cultural practices that is found in many parts of the world. Okay, so we may be sharing the same culture, we may be sharing the same goods and objects or symbols or artifacts and even language, but we people do not attach the same meaning to the cultural practices that is being found in many parts of the world. So that particular culture, they consider it as a very, very good practice, but for us, it's not. Like when this particular group of individuals are so fond of what kind of culture should we be talking about? A very unique cultural practice that we don't have in our country. Okay, marrying young. Okay, or fixed marriage, diba? In some countries, guys, actually, most particularly Indians, they tend to let their parents decide as to who they would be marrying. But for us Filipinos, we really don't think that it's right. Okay, but still we practice the cultural way of having the traditional wedding. But then the manner of doing so in actually getting your partner to be involved with in that particular ceremony and for your entire life actually, it's quite different. So there, that is called global culture. So, guys, I hope I was able to deliver everything to you thoroughly. But then, if there are confusions in your mind as you are viewing this video, just please feel free to take note of it and then ask that one during our next synchronous class meeting. So, that's about it. And that is the entire anthropological aspects on understanding the self. Thank you for spending your time watching this video, and I hope that you did learn and you did understand the very essence and the very significance of understanding the self through the lens of anthropological perspective. Have a good day, guys. Stay safe and, of course, be healthy as always and make sure that you are happy all the time. It's very important in our life. Goodbye, guys.
Don't forget to click like and subscribe.